A desperate plea echoed from her family, urging her to reach out. They were missing her profoundly, especially her father, sisters, and brother. The depth of their sorrow was palpable as they longed for her return. In February 2019, the vibrant life of 21-year-old Libby Squire came to a chilling halt when she vanished from the streets of Hull. Her sudden disappearance left her family and law enforcement in a frantic search for answers. Initial investigations yielded little hope, leading the search into a labyrinth of dead ends. But everything changed when the critical review of CCTV footage uncovered a vital piece of evidence that would shift the course of the investigation. This breakthrough not only pointed to a suspect, but also unveiled the grim truth of what had befallen Libby. Join us as we delve into the details of this essential discovery, which ultimately paved the way for justice. The messages of support poured in, providing her family with a glimmer of strength in their darkest hour. They implored anyone with information, no matter how insignificant it might seem, to come forward. Their singular wish was to see Libby Anna Squire return home. Libby, born on January 1, 1998, in West Wycombe, Buckinghamshire, was the cherished daughter of a tight-knit family. She was described as a bright, energetic young woman, radiating positivity and life. With a personality that could illuminate any room, Libby's zest for life was infectious. Her laughter resonated with those around her, creating an atmosphere of joy and camaraderie. Her friends and family lovingly recalled her as a free spirit, driven by her adventurous nature and an insatiable thirst for knowledge, particularly in her studies of philosophy. While the occasional mishap, like losing a phone or struggling to find her way home, was typical for anyone, Libby always managed to connect with someone to assure her family of her safety. It was entirely uncharacteristic for her to vanish without a trace. During the time of her tragic disappearance, the silence was deafening and haunting. At the age of 21, Libby was pursuing her degree at the University of Hull. Her commitment to her studies was unwavering, and she was well liked among her peers. Her friends admired her curiosity and her philosophical view of the world. Libby's magnetic charm naturally drew people to her, and she eagerly sought new ideas and experiences. Yet, like many young adults, Libby grappled with personal demons. Beneath her spirited facade, she faced bouts of anxiety and low moods that occasionally clouded her vibrant existence. She was candid with her loved ones about her struggles, and while her resilience was commendable, there were moments when the weight of her mental health became overwhelming. Despite her outward energy, the inner turmoil she faced often lurked in the shadows, unseen by most. As her family reflected on the verdict of the case, they felt a profound sense of loss. Closure was an elusive concept, and Libby remained forever absent. Life would never return to normal. Libby would always be a part of their hearts, a beautiful, caring spirit whose physical absence could never diminish the love they shared. On the evening of January 31, 2019, Libby was reveling in the company of her friends during a night out in Hull, a vibrant scene filled with laughter and camaraderie. The group gathered at the Welly, a popular music venue and nightclub in central Hull. Libby, slightly intoxicated, embraced her friends, expressing her joy at their reunion. She was a lovely person, and her friends noted how out of character it was for anything untoward to happen. But at approximately 11:20 p.m., the night took a tragic turn when Libby was denied entry into the club. The door staff cited her intoxication as the reason for their decision. With her friends' concern mounting, they opted to call a taxi to take Libby back to her home on Wellesley Avenue. Her home was merely a 10-minute taxi ride away, a familiar journey that should have been routine. Witnesses recalled seeing her sitting on a bench, but the details grew sparse from there. The taxi dropped her off, and then, like a whisper in the night, she vanished, leaving no trace behind. Libby had been dropped off at approximately 11:30 p.m., but tragically, she never entered her home. They had all been in different groups. One friend recalled being with their companion at that time. As the night unfolded, a group set out to withdraw cash before heading out. Upon arrival, they discovered that Libby had already made her way inside and was getting into a taxi a little over 10 minutes later, around 11:40 p.m. Libby Squire was later spotted walking alone on Beverly Road, approximately half a mile from her home. She appeared disoriented and visibly upset, with several witnesses recounting how she cried and sobbed in the street. Passers-by noticed her distress and stopped to offer assistance, yet her incoherent behavior made it difficult for them to provide help. Nervous and aggressive, Libby's demeanor raised alarms among those who tried to reach out. As the interactions continued, those who attempted to assist her eventually walked away, feeling uncertain about how to help. Libby's evident state of distress, combined with her inability to articulate her situation, painted a concerning picture. These sightings, alongside the alarming fact that she had not returned home, marked the last known moments of Libby's life before she vanished from public view. The urgency of the situation became clear as they sought access to the back garden of the neighboring house, attempting to block any potential escape routes in case someone attempted to flee. Upon entering through the front door, the search for Libby Squire quickly escalated into a massive operation. Over 100 police officers and staff were mobilized to scour the area. During their search, they discovered a mobile phone, which, despite thorough analysis, failed to shed light on Libby's whereabouts or movements. As night fell, specialist teams directed their focus toward nearby bodies of water, including the River Hull and the Beverly and Barmston Drain, fearing that Libby might have ended up there. In the days that followed her disappearance, large search parties comprising volunteers, locals, and police combed the streets, while Libby's face and details rapidly circulated through social media. News outlets and posters throughout Hull played a crucial role in raising awareness about her case. The University of Hull also initiated organized searches, urging residents to check their gardens, sheds, and outbuildings for any sign that Libby might have sought shelter. To enter the Welly nightclub, Libby Squire was captured on camera approaching the venue, but was ultimately turned away by the doorman before returning to her group. The businessman who released the footage to the police hoped it would help jog someone's memory of seeing Libby that night. Investigators conducted door-to-door inquiries and conducted thorough searches of drains, bins, and waterways. Despite the dedicated efforts of law enforcement, no significant leads emerged. An analysis of Libby's phone yielded little insight into her movements or contacts. As days turned into a frustrating silence, attention shifted toward reviewing CCTV footage. Investigators clung to hope that the CCTV footage would uncover vital clues about Libby Squire's disappearance. There was a pivotal moment when Libby vanished from view, followed closely by a second figure, presumed to be Libby herself. It was then that the figure was seen entering a vehicle. As the investigation deepened, a male figure was spotted taking the driver's seat before the vehicle pulled away into the night. By the fourth day of searching, police intensified their efforts, scouring local rivers and drains for any signs of Libby. A breakthrough emerged when a resident living near Oaks Road, Playing Fields, a mere 10 minutes from Beverly Road, reported hearing a woman scream around midnight, shortly after Libby's disappearance. The scream had jolted him awake, and he recalled the precise time, having checked his phone. Peering out his window, he noticed a man swiftly walking towards a car. This critical piece of information sparked a renewed examination of the CCTV footage. Detectives meticulously focused on the moment the scream pierced the stillness of the night, hoping to uncover any relevant clues. By retracing Libby's steps from that chilling moment, they aimed to piece together her last movements. As the detectives reviewed the footage, they shared their findings with Lisa and Russell Squire. Their confirmation that it was indeed Libby's watch intensified the urgency of the investigation. Detectives had been piecing together the timeline, noting that Libby would likely have been dressed in clothing fitting for that night. As they reviewed the CCTV footage, they spotted a silver Vauxhall Astra that had been circling the neighborhood for hours. This prelude to Libby's last sighting painted a chilling picture. The car had been moving through the area aimlessly, creating a sense of unease. Then, around midnight, it pulled up near where Libby was last seen walking. A man exited the vehicle, crossed the street, and began following her. Initially, Libby stood near a bus stop, but soon she turned to walk back toward her home. The man, assessing her movements, crossed back over the road. After a brief pause, he crossed the road once more, approaching Libby. The footage revealed a brief exchange between them, before they walked together, moving away from her home. Shortly thereafter, the CCTV captured the vehicle re-emerging onto Beverly Road. The man then returned to his car, and moments later, the headlights illuminated, signaling that the driver was preparing to act. At midnight, Libby was seen entering the car, which then drove away. Her watch was later discovered nearby, suggesting a violent confrontation may have occurred, possibly indicating she had been forced into the vehicle. Armed with the car's description and the timeline of events, the police narrowed their search area. The vehicle was traced to Oak Road Playing Fields, a mere 10 minutes away, around the same time. A local resident reported hearing a woman scream, and the headlights of the car were seen leaving the playing fields, further corroborating the unsettling timeline. This evidence shifted the investigation's focus to a more sinister possibility. Libby had fallen victim to a violent act. Meanwhile, two women came forth with a harrowing account. Around 3:00 a.m., they reported that a man had approached them in the street, exposed himself, and engaged in inappropriate sexual acts before them, seemingly reveling in their discomfort. The disturbing encounter painted a grim picture of the man who had crossed paths with Libby, heightening the urgency of the investigation and the fear gripping the community. The description provided by the women aligned eerily with the figure captured on the CCTV footage. A man driving a silver Astra. This crucial lead propelled the detectives into action, prompting them to trace the vehicle's number plate. Upon investigation, they identified the driver as 24-year-old Pavel Relowich, who had since vacated the area. This revelation sparked urgent questions. Where was Libby? CCTV officers were tasked with tracking the movements of Relowich's vehicle. Just 1 week after Libby's unsettling disappearance, on February 6, 2019, police arrested him on suspicion of her abduction. Relowich's troubling background soon came to light. Authorities uncovered a disturbing history of sexually motivated offenses he had committed between 2017 and 2018, including voyeurism, public indecency, and burglary. His offenses involved not only spying on women in their own homes, but also stealing intimate items such as underwear and sex toys. Voyeurism, the act of obtaining sexual pleasure by observing others without consent, was a hallmark of his disturbing behavior. Relowich engaged in public sexual acts and stalked young women, exposing himself as they passed by. Some of these incidents had been reported, triggering police investigations into his alarming conduct. His criminal history raised immediate red flags. Yet, at this stage, law enforcement was still diligently piecing together his potential involvement in Libby's case. Criminals often leave behind what experts refer to as a calling card at the scene of their offenses, a remnant of their presence. This pattern of behavior often serves to heighten their thrill and sexual gratification. Initially, when questioned about Libby Squire, Relowich denied any connection, asserting he had never encountered her. However, when confronted with the damning CCTV footage, his narrative shifted. He claimed he had offered Libby a ride home and had driven her to Oak Fields before leaving her there, insisting he returned home afterward. After being shown the damning CCTV footage, the suspect's narrative shifted. He claimed to have offered Libby a ride home, asserting that he had driven her to the Oak Fields before leaving her there and returning home. He recounted his evening, describing how he took a bath and spent time watching pornography on his phone. Although this was not a complete confession, it placed him at the scene, raising alarms among the detectives. The chilling witness accounts of screams heightened suspicions about his involvement in Libby's fate. With growing certainty, detectives acknowledged that they were no longer investigating a mere missing persons case. The grim reality was that they were now facing a case of potential harm. It wasn't long before Parvell was charged with 13 sexual offenses, yet the search for concrete evidence continued. During interrogation, the atmosphere turned tense as the suspect was confronted. When asked directly if he was responsible for kidnapping Libby, the answers were evasive, oscillating between a stark yes and a defiant no. Then, 7 weeks after Libby's disappearance, a significant breakthrough emerged. A fisherman's fateful discovery in the Humber estuary would forever alter the course of the investigation. The body, too decomposed for immediate identification, was found with a necklace bearing the letter L. Further examination confirmed their worst fears. The body belonged to Libby. The post-mortem revealed the harrowing truth. Libby had been raped before her death, although it remained unclear if she had been alive when she was submerged in the water. Authorities theorized that her body had been callously discarded into the water from the fields where she was last seen, left to drift toward the Humber. It was here, half a mile from the playing fields, that he had raped and murdered Libby Squire. In a chilling timeline, he returned to his car merely 7.5 minutes after committing the heinous act. Yet police would not arrive at the scene until 2 hours later, piecing together the timeline of horror. It was speculated that he may have intended to dispose of Libby's body in the River Hull. The devastating discovery of Libby's body shattered her family, particularly her mother Lisa, who was haunted by the knowledge that her daughter was terrified of water and struggled to swim. Lisa's grief was further compounded by the agonizing thought that Libby might have been alive when she was thrust into the water. In a heart-wrenching post on Facebook, Lisa poured out her anguish, capturing the profound loss of a mother mourning her child. In the throes of despair, her mother, Lisa Squire, wondered if there was anything she could have done to protect her daughter. With a heavy heart, she realized. So now it really does matter when you are a victim of upskirting, flashing, or indecent exposure. Many women had suffered at the hands of Relowich, whose life began on June 25, 1994, in the village of Waszewicz, northern Poland. He relocated to the United Kingdom in 2015, where his troubling nature would soon reveal itself. At the time of Libby Squire's disappearance in 2019, Relowich resided in Hull, where he worked as a butcher for Caro Food Group. He was married to Jagoda, a Polish woman he had met online in 2016. Together, they had 2 children, and Jagoda moved from Poland to join him in the UK. But the horror of Relowich's actions shattered their family, leading to the end of their marriage after his conviction for Libby's murder. Jagoda returned to Poland with their children, leaving behind the man she once loved. Despite having no prior criminal record, Relowich had been engaging in a disturbing series of sexual offenses and burglaries. His criminal behavior first surfaced in July 2017, when he was caught spying on a couple through their ground-floor bedroom window, intruding on their intimate moment. In the year that followed, his actions grew increasingly erratic and aggressive. In December 2017, he broke into a home, stealing 3 vibrators along with other valuables, including cash. The perception of sex offenders often paints a picture of older men lurking in alleyways, but the reality is far more unsettling. They blend into society, concealing their depravity behind a facade of normalcy. Relowich's offenses escalated throughout 2018 and into 2019. Just weeks before Libby Squire vanished, he brazenly exposed himself in public, a precursor to the horrors that were about to unfold. On 2 separate occasions, Pavel Relowich stalked a group of women as they returned home, shamelessly performing nonsensical sexual acts in front of their houses. Despite the unsettling evidence left behind at these scenes, the police were unable to identify him. Without a criminal record, and with his DNA and fingerprints absent from any database, the authorities struggled to establish a reliable connection between Relowich and the tragic fate of Libby Squire. However, Relowich's predatory behavior would not remain concealed for long. In February 2019, following Libby Squire's heartbreaking disappearance, police apprehended him. During the arrest, they uncovered a pink doll in his possession, a chilling artifact that hinted at a darker reality. The investigation unveiled a disturbing collection of evidence, including stolen items such as women's underwear, sex toys, and photographs of women. Among the findings, DNA evidence revealed the presence of his semen and saliva on several of these items. During the trial for the heinous rape and murder of Libby Squire, Pavel Relowich confronted his inner demons. He confessed to grappling with uncontrollable sexual urges and acknowledged a troubling addiction to violent pornography. Relowich further admitted to an insatiable compulsion that drove him to roam the streets at night, seeking vulnerable women to stalk or homes to invade. On August 13, 2019, he pleaded guilty to 9 separate charges. These charges encompassed voyeurism and burglary. At Sheffield Crown Court, he received a sentence of 8.5 years in prison for these offenses on August 16, 2019. Yet, the enigma of Libby's fate remained unresolved. A DNA match from sperm cells discovered on Libby's body linked Relowich to the crime. He maintained that their encounter had been consensual, asserting that after she scratched his face, he left her behind his car and drove away, claiming she was alive at that moment. He vehemently denied any involvement in her death. While serving his sentence for prior crimes, Pavel Relowich faced formal charges for the rape and murder of Libby Squire on October 24, 2019. This pivotal moment marked a new direction in the investigation, as police intensified their focus on his potential role in her tragic demise. The case soon captured the media's attention, revealing that Relowich had previously been arrested for unrelated offenses and was now entangled in the investigation surrounding Libby's death. Relowich's arrest uncovered a chilling contrast to the facade of a seemingly ordinary life. Neighbors viewed him as a friendly, family-oriented man, unaware that he had been preying on vulnerable women in Hull. Despite his outward portrayal as a devoted husband and father, his criminal past emerged, painting him as a dangerous predator whose actions culminated in the brutal murder of Libby Squire. The investigation itself proved to be intricate and emotionally charged. The severity of the crime, coupled with extensive search efforts and the prolonged quest for answers, weighed heavily on everyone involved. Libby's family endured an emotional toll, while law enforcement worked tirelessly, and the broader community united in a heartfelt quest for justice for Libby. While Relowich maintained that his encounter with the university student was consensual, a jury was now tasked with the grave responsibility of determining that it was, in fact, a brutal act of rape, leading to a verdict of guilty in her murder. In a chilling assertion, Relowich claimed that although he had sexual relations with the university student, he insisted it was consensual. Yet, as the trial unfolded, a jury was faced with a harrowing truth. They were tasked with determining the reality of his actions, deciding whether it was indeed rape and if he was guilty of Libby's murder.